How's it going, gents? Duke Manley here with Duke Manley Makes. If you don't want to hear the sob story about this Mini Cooper Countryman, skip to this time. Alright, now let's continue.
I don't know if it was a rocket or whatever, but incredibly fast, opposite direction.
Good day, gents. It is I, Duke Manley Makes. Why haven't I posted a long-form video in so long? Well, I made a mistake. I had I've had multiple lapses in judgment, and am going to explain them. So, I bought this Mini Cooper, 2012 Mini Cooper Countryman, All4. And it, off the bat, had some trouble. The crankshaft pulley seal leaked oil. Easy enough fix. The clutch had a terrible slip problem. It was near impossible doing a roll start on a hill. And, well, actually, that was about it. So I decided to tackle it myself. All well and good. There are tons of videos on YouTube. I will link them below. The ones that helped me actually dismantle the vehicle and begin work. Well, here's where things were going wrong. So I dismantled everything. I removed the transmission and was about to install the new flywheel, and I was using the old flywheel bolts. So I began torquing down the old flywheel bolts to spec and snap the bolt. Fine. I've done bolt recovery before, not a big deal. It was a big deal. I could not get the bolt out. No matter how many different tips and tricks I tried to remove the bolt. Near impossible. Even tried welding onto the bolt to get more purchase. The weld didn't take. And then I tried even drilling out the hole to tap a new hole, and I couldn't drill a center enough hole. So then I filled the hole back in with weld to try tapping it again, and the weld had become tempered and I could not drill through it. So then I come to the conclusion of, let me just remove and replace the crankshaft, right? Wrong. Bought a used crankshaft and was pulling apart the lower block. Mind you, this whole time it's still inside the car. I don't have the equipment to pull the engine. It's still inside the car, held up by a 2x4 and a jack. And as I began to pull things apart, I realized that I had welded the crankshaft onto the upper block. So then I had to go through a tedious process of cutting out that part and bending it out of place. As I was bending it out of place, I had pulled the cylinder 2 and 3, I had pulled the pistons below the cylinder. So then the rings came out. So in an attempt to push the rings back in and install the cylinder from the underside of the engine, I ended up breaking one of the rings. I couldn't get the tool in to clamp around the rings to just hammer it back into place. I didn't have that. Like I couldn't get it in. So then I say, well, I'll just go through the top of the engine. Let me just pull the pistons up and through, and I'll replace the rings from the top of the engine, meaning taking the head gasket, replacing the head gasket, got new rings in, reinstalled it, and I dismantled it a lot. I practically rebuilt this engine, and it was already catawampus from the start. So I go and I do the timing. I bought a timing tool to specially do the timing, did the timing, and it doesn't fire up. It's just not firing. And on top of that, it's leaking a ton of oil. When it's cranking, it's just spitting out oil. Don't know where the oil's coming from. Probably flooded the cylinders. Probably from the head gasket. I don't know. So, bless Mrs. Manley and her long suffering, because she is just my cheerleader the whole time. And every time I come to her and I say, I'm so sorry, it was not supposed to be this way, I need to buy this, I need to buy this. And every time she would say, do it. And I picked up more hours at work, I got a better position at work, so I got a raise, and we're getting a little bit more money. She's back at work, even though Junior Manley is, well, as of recording this, he's 5 months old. On top of all this, she is fully supported. So give Mrs. Manley thanks down below. Perusing eBay, and there is an engine, 87,000 miles on it. So I go to her and I say, hey, they're asking 3,100 and something with a flat rate freight fee. And I said, if I can get permission from work, I work at a car dealership, if I can get permission at work and see if they will unload the truck and hold the engine there for a short amount of time while I go and pick it up, then I'm gonna put an offer on it, because it had the offer function. So she gives me the okay. She's all right with the price, and especially with the lower mileage, 87,000 miles. I send them an offer. I get permission from the parts department. They say, hey, it's all good. We'll unload it. We'll load it up in the back of a truck so you can take it home. So I send them an offer, and I say, like, I kind of went a little low. I felt I was going low. $2,750. 10 minutes later, I get a notification. They accepted the offer and they're shipping it out. Just ecstatic. So I have the engine. I've looked it over, and there are oil spots, but it's not the amount of when the old engine was leaking oil. So, and at this point right now, I'm ready to just get this engine back in and band-aid it for the time being. I love this car. I'm not going to get rid of it. I got rid of the Virus. I got rid of Guinevere, my Chevy Astro. I feel so bad that I got rid of that, because I love that van. I crashed my little pickup truck. So I'm not going to get rid of the Mini, even though it has caused me pain and suffering, blood, sweat, and tears, questioning my belief in God, which it's all good now. It's all good, because, well, me and the big man were talking, and we're good. We're good now. But I'm excited to get this engine back in. It comes with the wiring harness and everything, so it should be able to just scoot right into place, no problem. The other thing is, I'm going to do it a little bit differently than when I was initially working on the car. I had pulled the front end off everything and had just removed the transmission. Then I was working on the engine. It was a pain. So I'm going to get all the front end off, and I'm going to rent an engine hoist, and we're going to pull the engine and transmission out. I'm going to take the transmission off, transmission on the new one, hoist that one into place, plug everything back in, and start her up. It can't get easier than that. Now, I may be eating my words. And editor me, how did it go? Oh, that's terrific. Oh man, I'm so excited to get that point in this video. But I'm ready to get this car back up and running. I started working on this late last year, and here it is, still not running. It cranks just fine, spits oil out, but at least I got it well and good enough that it could rotate without trouble. But I'm ready to get this car up and running. So in this video, we are going to take the front bumper off. We're going to take the radiator out with all the bracket parts, take the headlights off. We're going to drain the radiator. We're going to have to drain the engine. We're going to have to drain the transmission. And when we get to that point, what we're going to do is we're going to start removing the air box. We're going to unplug the fuel line. We're going to remove all of the vacuum lines. We're going to unclip the transmission. Once we get everything unplugged and it is only attached via the engine mounts, we're going to undo the engine mounts, bring in the engine hoist, hook everything up, and then what we're going to do is we're going to undo the bottom engine mounts. We're going to pull it straight out. We're going to take the transmission off, put it on the new engine. We're going to park the old engine. We're going to pick up the new engine. We're going to slide it back into place, and we're going to reverse the process. Honestly, it can't get easier than that. So, let's jump into it. I'm ready to get to work. Let's frickin' jump into it, guy. Alright? Let's just frickin' send up. We're gonna frickin' send it, dude. We're gonna jump in. And we're just gonna send it. Alright? We're gonna frickin' send it. So one thing I'm doing this time around, got the light all set up, is rather than putting all the bolts into individualized plastic baggies with labels, which is all well and good, but looking back on it with a box full of sandwich bags that are full of bolts and nuts and random labels, and sometimes the labels fall off of some of the bags, I, this time around, am just going to we'll put the bolts back in. Remove a bolt, put the bolt back in. Remove a bolt, put the bolt back in. Even with the hood latch, boom. So, this time around, when I start reassembling, I'm not doing that scrambling of searching through a bunch of bags, taking so much time doing it. I am saving that by just keeping them in one place. Now, however, if there are nuts and through bolts that you have a bolt and a nut where you can't exactly put it back together, whatever the situation may be, then I may be pressed to put it in a bag. But that's a lot easier to handle rather than scrambling and wasting 5 minutes of time to just dig through a bag to see where whatever specific bolt I'm looking for is, and instead I can take that time to just unscrew, put the part on, and re-screw it back in. Draining the radiator. Keep in mind, that is fresh radiator fluid. I put brand new radiator fluid in this, and it didn't work, so I gotta drain it again. Not happy about it, but it is what it is. And I'm trying to get as much out as possible, because there's nothing more annoying than that delicious blue liquid getting everywhere. So what I was doing is I was taking my hand like that, and then taking my thumb on the other side, and that would create a majority seal. And then what I do is I blow into it, because I'm not putting my mouth on that. They put nasty Epicac ick on it, and it is bitter as all get out. But what I was doing is I was blowing air through the system and purging out a lot more than if I was not doing that. A little life hack from your boy Duke Manley. Also, got the whole front end off. Still following through with reattaching all the hardware. Some of the hardware here, once I have this removed, I can place those up, and then on the other side of that, There's one on the back side, and that is one of these. Don't remember which, but it's there. So, front end is off, draining the radiator, going to undo the condenser coil here. Something to keep in mind, don't undo that. Bad for the environment. Newer coolant, or rather refrigerant, is less harmful to the environment. But if you can, take it to a shop and have them vacuum it out responsibly. In my case, this it just, it was empty one day. I'll leave it at that. Well, that was actually really easy. So, on the top of this here, there's a little tab. Take your little tiny flathead here. Any flathead really. Actually, any sort of tool that you can push down on that tab. And then it kind of unplugs itself. It's a pretty clever design. I will give this one to BMW for actually being pretty clever, but just only once, because BMW engineers make this all complicated, all messy. So as I'm undoing the wiring harness here, because the whole engine with existing wiring harness is going to, and then that is going to take its place, what I've been doing is snipping these here and preserving these mounting points here as well. And my plan, whether how effective, I just realized I cut that one too short. But the plan still works anyway, because I can run a zip tie through that, zip, and then hook it on the end there. But with this one, especially with how thick that harness is where it was mounted up, I can run the male side of a zip tie through that female end, put the female end of the zip tie on that end, and still have good purchase. So that's the idea. Alrighty, I got gasoline, I got petrol on my hands. Petrol. Okay. This will show up. See that little plastic bit in the middle? So there are tabs on the outside, and putting just the lightest amount of pressure, they just snapped off. So the way to get this off is to restrain that from moving. And let me see if I can. So there we go. So pushing that tab back, because that little plastic bit in the middle moves. So pushing it against where the tab was, and then pulling out, and there it is removed with the petrol on your hands. Get up to speed, I removed the radiator. It is, oh, that's right. It's on top of the roof with the pan that had the coolant in it, the brand new coolant. And I got the AC condenser off, and I started undoing the pumps, getting this out of the way, and yeah. One thing I realized with this engine is they snipped off the power for the starter right there. So what I'm going to do is when I start pulling this out, I am going to snip this one lower down, strip it, splice it, solder it, wrap it, install it. In that order. Hey, Duke Manley from the future here. Don't snip the battery, the thick gauge wire to the battery. Don't snip that, right? Hear me out. This wiring, all here that connects to the alternator, that whole wiring connects in with your starter and also goes down and connects with the existing wiring harness. Just undo that. If you're going to pull out an engine, if you're doing transmission work, pull out the engine, undo that first, set it to the side, pull everything out, do your repairs, put it back, install again, hunky-dory. You don't have to go through the process of snipping this. I had just trusted the sellers of the engine that had snipped their wires, and now I get to do some fun soldering. So, back to past. The other thing different here, the intake manifold, this whole gizmo here is different to the throttle body. This one's got a little bend in it, polymer probably. So I will have to undo that and put that one. And I'm gonna have to do that with a couple different things. Like there isn't the upstream O2 or the cat coming down or the downstream O2, so I'm going to have to share the love with those parts. Other than that, I'm pretty sure that this should be able to marry up just right. Rather, this part here doesn't match, but I believe that bracket's the same, so I should be able to undo that and then install the old engine mount back there somewhere. Oh yeah! Okie day! Axles are out. Took a bit of coaxing to get the lower control arms to disconnect. The nice thing is I've already pulled them apart, so it took a little bit of muscle to get them detached. But if I were doing this like I did last time, it would have been a lot more time taken. So thankfully, I greased up everything before reassembly, so it came back apart. This axle took a bit more coaxing, and it was a matter of coming below the transmission and getting a little wedge into it and just working it out. Yeah, it's fine. And yeah, so there's that. Now both axles are out. Then I can come in here and I take that off and then undo some bolts, and then I'll pull the transfer case away, and I believe the starter also shares some bolts. I believe, don't quote me on it. Editor me, was that right? Oh, swell. Also, there's this roll of tape here that I was using to label, and once I put everything back together, I couldn't get to it. So now that I'm pulling it back apart, I can get that roll of tape out. Onward and upwards. We're gonna do the wide. All right. Transfer case. One bolt is there on this side. So on the transmission side, one of the bolts are there. And then the other bolts are there, right at the end of my finger. That's where another bolt is. And then there's one below it, which is obscured by the transfer case. So getting that top one's pretty easy. You have some extensions. You can go from the side here and get the bolt that way. The one below, I cannot for the life of me remember how I tightened it, but I think it might be a matter of getting a wrench down in here. Doing it from there. So we'll see what I can do. I'm actually happy to get the new engine in here, because I feel like I did a terrible job reconfiguring everything, and I kind of just stuck things back together, and when I plugged things back in, things were crossed and all catawampus. So yeah, blessings in disguise. Just ready to... So most of the tools that I own come from my wife's grandfather, late grandfather, I should say. And I gotta say, sometimes simplicity is key. This is such a good way to get into a small space. And when I was loosening that, I could get it at a little bit of an angle like that, get purchase on it, and loosen it. So I reckon now I should be able to reach in there and unscrew it again. Lo and behold, there we go. And I think that there are only 3 bolts, albeit very thick bolts, thick with like 3 C's, and I think there's only 3 of them. Ta-da! And as you see, saturate with axle grease. Cue the clip! Saturate with axle grease. Classic. There we go. There's 3 bolts. I am fairly certain it's only 3. What I should be able to do now is detach the transfer case, and I am a 1 step closer to... I'll keep doing that motion because I want to drive my Mini Cooper, for Pete's sake. Let me see. There has been divorcement. So, I'm trying to refrain from detaching the subframe and keeping it mostly mounted together, even with the center brace here, keeping everything still mounted up. And I think what it may end up being is when I pull the engine, I'll have to wiggle this out, and when I bring the engine in, the new engine married with the transmission, to wiggle it back in. That's the plan for now, but I may change plans later. Duke Manley from the future here. Something to let you know. Do not pull the transfer case off of the transmission until you remove that engine brace. You gotta remove that, because the transfer case will butt up against that and you can't pull it out of the way. So be sure when you pull everything apart, leave the transfer case where it is, remove that bracket, and then you can slide out of place, set it down, and you're golden. Alrighty, some developments. The tubes to send the hot radiator fluid to the heater coil, got those undone. It spilt coolant. I hate coolant. Can I just say I hate coolant? It is the most irritating texture to get on your skin. Sometimes I feel like it burns. My hand's a little red. Should I be wearing gloves? Absolutely. Have I been? Absolutely not. Any hoozles, got the well, they're detached, and there was that there. I don't know what that goes to be honest, but it attaches to that blue thingy down there, not the roller tape, the one in front of it. And also something to keep in mind is that both of these are mounted, both the fuel line and this line, both mounted to the transmission, so I'll have to remove that when the time occurs, when it is time to remove. But I'm starting to get things independent. As I said earlier, divorcement. And I think I am pretty close to the point in which I need to rent an engine hoist and get the engine hoist hooked up via this. And it looks like there's supposed to be a mount there, but there isn't. So, hooked via that. And I reckon it should balance everything. Bring it out. Put it back in. Oh, another thing detached is the shifter cable for the transmission. And also there is a bracket here that those are mounted to. And I should put the hardware back in per best practices. There they are. That way, I'm not playing the where did everything go game, because to be honest with you, when I put it back together, I had spare bolts, and that's no good. Get that put in, but alas, I may this time around find where those bolts go, because when I get this pulled out, pull the transmission off, put the transmission on that. Well, first I gotta transfer over the flywheel clutch magig, and but it'll allow me to tighten things on the backside, which when I was reassembling this, I was cramming myself in tight spaces to reattach things. So it should be better. It will be better. And it will be 87,000 miles rather than. Haha, I did a fart joke. Back to dismantlization. Alright, it's been a few days. Weekend to be precise. Saturday, Sunday did not work on it. Easter weekend. Gotta celebrate Easter. Gotta celebrate the resurrection of Christ, of course. But rented myself an engine hoist. $30 a day. 3 days or more, $90, and that gets me the whole week. Hopefully it doesn't take me that much, and by the time I get this back, hopefully I can get it prorated. But, well, I'm doing something a little shady here. My car isn't jacked up high enough, and well, I couldn't be bothered raising up the car any further because I put this out. But, sacrificed ratchet strap hook, and we're gonna see how that deals with it. I've relieved the pressure of the engine off the car, and it seems to be fine. So we'll be a little careful as we're working further. The next thing to do is to start undoing the engine brackets, and then there's also one back there. So I am going to I'm gonna pounce on that. Wish me luck. Welcome back, glad to have you. I need to charge my phone, so I have to pull the extension cable. Any hoozles, it is out. It is also dark outside now, but that's okay. Next thing to get off is the down pipe here with the cat there. That entails undoing the upstream and downstream O2 sensors, and a couple other things to do a little flippy flop with, namely these. I don't believe, yeah, doesn't have these. The other thing is swapping this over, and I think that is about all I need to swap over. Pretty easy. Once I got that subframe dropped out, I was able to pop it out, wheel it out just fine. And also, a little update here. You see a little bit of daylight through. There you go, you see that? It's holding. It hasn't bent or misshapen. So, win for the ratchet strap. Win for the ratchet strap hook. The next thing to do before I start pulling things apart, well, firstly, I need to undo this, get that off, and then I got some metal barrels over there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this down on a barrel, in theory, and that way I can start yoinking the rest of the stuff off, get the transmission off, and also the flywheel and the clutch. Put it in that one, and then I can move the transmission over to there, and then I can start theoretically. Now to get that off, put it on there, put that on there. Actually, now I think about it, how do I get this over there? I got some logistics to go over before I do that. Well, I removed a lot of goodies here. I got the turbo, I got the AC pump, the alternator, and the starter removed, as well as the intake manifold, and dangling. And I thought, I wonder how heavy it is. And then it just went yoink and unhooked, and I said, okay, we're going down. So there's a famous bodybuilder, and he said that you're stronger putting things down than you are picking them up. So a lot of the way that he trained was by taking really heavy things, getting it loaded up, and then working it down, and he was built. Also, that was the time of steroids, so we can't really trust that it is all natural, but I put it on the ground safely and soundly. I have a little chisel under there, and because it likes to tilt this way. So there it is. But I can't have it there because, well,
To be continued. Insert doom music. Oh wait, I'm not supposed to read that.